All it took me was a quick look around to identify where I was. It wasn't hard. I saw it every time I closed my eyes. I was on a street, but I knew this wasn't real. The colors were not right. They were too bright. I started walking. I didn't want to, but pure impulse dragged me. I knew where I was going. I knew where I was supposed to go. The house was just in the middle of the block. The houses were all the same, small ones that had once been white on the outside, but now had graffiti and dirt on their facade. They all had a small garden at the entrance. Some were better than others, but none of them had particularly been taken care of. As if transported forward, I was suddenly in the middle of the block, opening the little metal gate of the barren garden and knocking on the green door of the dirty little house. I knew the door would open and I would see him. And he would smile and somehow recognize me. My face, he would say. I was the spitting image of my mother, apparently. I knew all that because I had already been through it. The door opened, he appeared, and I froze. "Wow," he said. A disgusting man wearing a white shirt that had some mysterious stains on it. He was holding a beer, and when he had opened the door, he had seemed annoyed by the fact that I had interrupted his day. But when he saw me, his expression had relaxed and tensed at the same time. He was shocked, but in a good way. I was stupid enough to assume. The first time I saw him, I thought he looked homey. Now he just made me gag. "Raymond Walker?" I remember having asked. "You," was what this time came out of my mouth as a desperate whisper. He didn't nod nor talk to confirm it. He just said, "You look just like your mother." That had been enough to win me over back then. Now it made my skin crawl. I remembered having smiled and my heart racing because I didn't know what to do. I had come that far without a plan. At that moment, I wanted him to make the next move. And he did. "Please," he said, stepping away from the door. "Come in." "Thanks," I had said. I entered cautiously, not like the first time. I knew now who he was, and it scared me. He took me to the living room and my eyes went straight to the red door. That door went to the basement. That door would change my life. Do you want something to drink?" he said, not knowing how to interact with me. But he seemed excited. To see me? Yes, that must have been it. This time I didn't say anything. It didn't matter. The events went as they had the first time. "I'm fine, thank you," I had said, but he wouldn't listen. He must have been really nervous because he stepped into the kitchen anyway. It was a contiguous room, even smaller than the living room, which only had an old TV and a brown, worn-out couch. It didn't even have a table. It became clear to me that he didn't receive many visits. The place just screamed of red flags. But at that time, I just wanted to meet him. So I ignored them all. I just wanted to know what kind of man my father was. He came back with a can of Coke and gave it to me effusively. How did you find me?" he asked. "I Googled you," I lied in a whisper. I had hacked so many servers from so many agencies to find even a trace of his name, all to lead me here. And for what? That easy?" he said, genuinely surprised. "Yeah," I had said. I'm good with technology." "Wow," he said, signaling me to sit down on the couch. He sat on one extreme, and I on the other. "Your mother was the one who understood technology. Sometimes I don't even know how to work the microwave, he joked. I smiled. I didn't want to, but I did. Why did he have to bring up my dead mother? Why did I have to empathize with him? I wanted to get this over with. I needed out of this. Why was I here again? I didn't want to see what happened. Why was I here again, reliving this awful memory? A sound came from the basement. I looked towards the door, but only because he seemed so shocked. If he had had his shit together, I wouldn't have pried. He would have gotten away with it. What was that? I had asked, curious simply because he seemed worried. Nothing, he snapped brusquely. I was taken back, and he noticed. Sorry, he apologized, surprised by his own manners. I'm so sorry. He looked around distraught. Something was wrong. The situation just kept telling me to go, but I wouldn't. I had already been through this. I had to finish. If I left now, God, I wouldn't forgive myself. I had to get her out of there. Are you hungry? He asked, and before I could decline, he jumped up and ran to the kitchen. Your mother was a good cook, too. His voice came a little muffled from the kitchen. I was only good for cleaning. That and maths. I'm an accountant. Did you know that? Well, not anymore. I left my job, you know. Are you good at maths? You must have gotten that from me. I'm all right, I said, standing up. Something had seemed wrong then. Something pulled me towards that door. Maybe it was the color. That red couldn't have been so bright. It must have actually been brownish. But it was bright red now. Why? I had to learn how to cook after she was gone, you know? He continued from the other room. She always told me that I would starve if aliens ever abducted her. He chuckled, and I did too. She was right. So I had to learn. Yes. When she was gone. I opened the door carefully so he wouldn't hear. I hadn't wanted to piss him off. I wanted him to like me. Now I didn't care. I had to go downstairs. I had to finish this. When your mother died, he continued, his voice becoming more and more distant the more I walked down the basement. When your mother died, I just couldn't. That's why I gave you up, not because I didn't want you. I wanted the best for you, and that wasn't me. Cool, I whispered dismissively. The first time around that had almost made me come back up and ignore my gut. But then there was another noise. A little cry, and it made me hurry up. But I always knew we would see each other again. A father knows those things. He kept going, and I wanted to be the best version of myself. You really outdid yourself then, I said cynically now. I was in front of another door. It was locked, but the key was on the lock. I just turned it and opened it. The light illuminated the whole room. It was a hole, really. The bad smell practically punched me in the face. The mattress on the floor screamed psychopath, and the girl that sat on it, scared and crying, screamed victim. What the fuck? I had said back then. And I said it again. Every time I remembered it, it seemed more twisted, and now, seeing it again, it enraged me so much my whole body trembled. You shouldn't have done that, he said behind me. I turned around, the first time scared, now pissed off. He looked menacing. The girl hadn't moved because of that. But I was unaware of how twisted he was, so I was brasher. I hadn't felt it on my skin, so I could only just imagine, and it disgusted me. That rage was the one that gave me the strength at that moment to grab a baseball bat that laid on the floor and charge against him. No questions asked, no benefit of the doubt. The situation was crystal clear, and it needed to stop. So I stopped it. I bashed his head so hard the first time he fell to the floor. He struggled a bit, trying to stand up, but I hit him once more. I looked at the girl and screamed at her to run and find help. She did. But I didn't want help for me. I wanted help for him because I was about to kill the bastard. I hit him again and again and again until the floor had the same color as the bright door. Red. Red with lumps. I could only guess what those were. I heard people upstairs. I now knew that those were the police. Back then I hadn't known. And I hadn't cared. The police would find a girl covered in spots of blood with a man dead at her feet. She would be crying, not understanding how her own father, someone who she had fantasized all her life to meet, could be a monster. She would be so torn. She had become a monster herself, a murderer, and it would take 3 policemen to force her to stop bashing the remains, to reduce her, to stop her. But this time around, no police came. It was just me and my rage, and my tears. I swung the bat and destroyed him again and again, just me and my rage. "Kira!" Mr. Stark yelled, grabbing my arm, taking me out of the trance. I was on the plane, hitting nothing with air. Mr. Stark was staring at me with wide eyes, looking at me worried. Looking at me and my rage.